So you wanted to buy a Steam Deck, but you were too late. It's too expensive now. I'm going to say something that some might find to be a little controversial. As soon as Valve dropped the LCD Steam Deck late last year, I had already thought that the Steam Deck was no longer really worth it for the mass market. Don't get me wrong, I think the price of the OLED Steam Deck prior to this recent price hike was actually still somewhat worth it if you were an enthusiast. But once they got rid of the base LCD version, I stopped recommending to people to start things off with a Steam Deck. Instead, I recommended people look into alternatives. Whether that be another handheld gaming PC brand new fresh off the market, something refurbished or open box from Best Buy for example, or even, yes, taking a risk on the used gaming market. I've put in quite a bit of effort and research to figure out what's the best bang for your buck that you can buy right now when it comes to PC gaming. Specifically, handheld PC gaming. And I noticed now that Valve has increased the price of the Steam Deck, there are many people that feel like it's hopeless. There is no chance to get into handheld PC gaming if you didn't already. But I don't think that's true at all. What if I told you that there are still some very affordable options, actual mainstream options, that you can buy both brand new, or if you're okay with looking into the pre-owned market, buying them used, and picking them up not only for the same price that you could buy a Steam Deck or a Switch 2, for example, but even the same price that you could get a Switch 1 for. Because there are some fairly good options out there, but you have to be willing to put some effort on your end in order to find those options. And I'll start off with what is probably the easiest recommendation, largely because of the branding, but also because of the price that it's regularly hovered around. And of course, that is the Xbox ROG Ally. This product dropped last year and it was dragged through the mud for a couple of reasons. It had the name Xbox at the front of it, which already puts enough people off, but even beyond that, it was an Xbox in nothing but name. The Xbox ROG Ally had the name Xbox, but could not actually play Xbox games, not console games anyway, which obviously was very off-putting for people that wanted a handheld Xbox. Instead, it was a handheld gaming PC. Effectively, it was the next console in the lineup because in the years prior, you had the Asus ROG Ally that did not carry the Xbox name, and this would be the newer model. The other issue with this thing is that it launched at $600. When it came down at that price, it was considered too expensive for a handheld gaming PC. Now it's considered the budget option. But I will be very honest with you. Today, right now, I would not buy this thing for $600. It has regularly seen deals and discounts that drop it towards $500, maybe even $550. In fact, only last week over Memorial Day weekend, this thing was going for $490-ish off Amazon, and that's for the brand new version. Now, every other gaming handheld that was comparable to this one has seen a price hike ever since this thing released. So it's entirely possible that this one, any day now, could get a price hike as well. So typically I would recommend to people to wait for another deal to drop it back down $100 so it's closer to $500, but that might not come. That being said, depending on what type of buyer you are, I still would not recommend buying this for $600, unless you absolutely have to own it brand new. Instead, what I would recommend is to jump onto Amazon and look at the alternative options of what's being sold at used. There's one available currently for $491. There are a few for around $525. The nice thing about this device is that it's still less than a year old, so even if it is going to be pre-owned, it's not going to have been used all that much. And since you're buying it off of Amazon, well, you're going to have that security of the purchase. If there are any issues with the device or you inspect it and you find that it wasn't a smart purchase, you can easily return it. Now, you want to save even more money than that, you can also just go to bestbuy.com and check what's available for the open box in your local area. Around me, they have Xbox ROG Allies available for anywhere between $430 to $470. These are open box from Best Buy. So it's the same concept. You can inspect the device, and if it seems like it's been beat up or in worse condition than you expected, you'll easily be able to return it. The point is that I think you can easily grab one of these things for between $400 to $500, and it would be well worth your investment and a very good entry point into the handheld PC gaming space. I've used a ton of these devices now in the last 6 months, and I would say that the Xbox ROG Ally is one of the most comfortable ones that you can hold. And strangely enough, it also has one of the best speakers on any of these devices that I've ever used. The battery life is decent for what it offers. And the power that it comes into the gaming experience is comparable, if not stronger, than a Steam Deck's. The biggest flaw that most people find is that it runs with Windows out of the box. It doesn't have SteamOS like the Steam Deck did. Hypothetically, you could easily wipe away everything that's already on there and you could install SteamOS onto the device. And many people do that. But it does take a little bit of effort, and that's something that not many people are comfortable going through. That being said, I will say that I do not use SteamOS all that much. It is definitely the better software to have for your handheld gaming device, but, and this might be a controversial take, I actually think Xbox full screen experience, while it's not exactly on par with SteamOS, it has dramatically increased the quality of using a Windows handheld. So when you boot this thing up, you're not seeing a desktop anymore. Now you're seeing the Xbox full screen experience, which is very easy to play all of the different games that you want. And I do think it's pretty intuitive, and it's only getting better with every update. Most recently, the Xbox full screen experience has made it so that if you dock your device and undock it, it actually sets up the settings more appropriately to make it more seamless. Another thing is that if you do need a mouse, there's an option now where you can toggle using your joystick as a mouse to click around. But honestly, even while using Xbox full screen experience, I seldom feel like I need to use a mouse. The point is that I would not let the fact that it runs Xbox full screen experience deter you from buying this thing, and even if you feel like you have to have SteamOS on there, again, you can wipe the device in about 45 minutes, follow a tutorial online, and you can boot it up from scratch running SteamOS. That being said, I did help my nephew buy this device. It was his first handheld gaming PC. He was a PS5 gamer and a Nintendo Switch 1 gamer. He was reluctant because, the console warring stuff. He didn't want to buy an Xbox because he had a Sony. He's a high schooler, so these things still matter to him. But even him, somebody who hasn't tinkered with hardware, he was able to get it up and running fairly easily, playing most of the games that he'd like to play either through Steam or through emulation. And he's gotten so comfortable with the device that, surprisingly, he's teaching me a lot about it as well. And I'm highlighting that because I want you to understand that it's no longer the idea where you're picking up a Windows device and you're being overwhelmed and scared when you buy it. This is Xbox full screen experience, and it's available on every single Windows handheld, and I only think it's going to get better. Now, if $400 to $500 is still too much for you, you could still grab this one for a little bit cheaper depending on your location and depending on how comfortable you are going into the pre-owned market. If you keep an eye out on Facebook Marketplace or on OfferUp, it's not that impossible to find this thing for less than $400. You might have to have a little bit of patience and wait for one to pop up, or you might have to negotiate with the seller. But I have seen these pop up in my local area for anywhere between $300 and $350, and they usually come with some extras like a screen protector and a dock. So definitely, if you're comfortable with it, look into Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp because you might find a really good deal on one of these. And that's actually true for every single one of the devices that I'm covering. Now, kind of to circle back a little bit, if you're adamant that you have to buy a device that has SteamOS, no longer is the Steam Deck the recommended purchase, obviously. Instead, I would actually suggest the Legion Go S. Now, I so wish, if you're listening to this and you're in the market, you would have bought one of these last year. Back in November during Black Friday, they were going for around $450 brand new. But, in fairness, back during Black Friday last year, using a special PayPal discount, you could have gotten the LCD Steam Deck for less than $300 as well. Brand new. But I don't know that we could really dwell on the past for this kind of stuff. So there are two different types of Legion Go S's that you can purchase. One of them is the Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme chip. Now, the Z1 Extreme chip is very good. In fact, a year ago, I would have told you if you're buying a handheld gaming PC to make sure you buy one with a Z1 Extreme chip. And you could still do that, but it is a bit more tricky to find one at a good price. The issue is that the Z1 Extreme model for the Legion Go S jumped up from the starting price of $900 to where it is now at close to $1,600. And I do not recommend the Legion Go S for $1,600. Not now anyway, maybe in a few years when these prices go up even more. There was a lower-end budget model that was released as well as the Z1 Extreme model, and that's the one with the Z2 Go edition. So you'd be looking up the Legion Go S with the Z2 Go chip. Now, this device brand new did also get a major price increase. It's now selling for close to $1,000 brand new. But the open box price is still a lot lower. Again, if you search on bestbuy.com and you look up the open box options, you might find them anywhere between $590 to $650. This price is a bit steep in comparison to the Xbox ROG Ally, but I do think it does ultimately offer a better experience than the Xbox ROG Ally. The Z2 Go, while it is weaker than the Z1 Extreme chip, it's faster than what the Ally has, which is the Z2 chip. I know these chips can get confusing, but basically you're going to be paying more for the Legion Go S Z2 Go edition in comparison to the Xbox Ally, but you are getting a better performance on pretty much every single game that you're going to play. And of course, you also get the larger screen. There might be some pros in favor of the Xbox ROG Ally. For example, the form factor might be more comfortable to hold. I think there are plenty of comparison videos that you can watch online to put these head to head and see which one you'd prefer. But if we're strictly talking about the performance of the game, the price difference between these two actually does make sense. Now, unfortunately, because of the price increase for this device, there aren't many other options if you want something affordable, which I don't know if you consider $590 affordable, but this is the cheapest that it's probably going to get. Even if you shop around eBay, you won't really find that much better of a deal. Your best bet for this one is probably Best Buy with the open box. As per usual, if you're able to find it cheaper on OfferUp or Facebook Market in your local area, I would definitely recommend doing that. But since the Asus ROG Ally has the Xbox branding next to it, I think it's going to be a lot easier to find that one at a good deal because the Xbox name is a lot more known for gamers. Whereas with the Legion Go S, it might be a little bit harder to find a good deal on that in the nearby pre-owned market. I love the Lenovo Legion Go brand, by the way. Every single Legion Go I think is amazing value. Rather, I think it was an amazing value, but now with the price increases, it's a lot harder to find something at a good deal. Well, kind of, because you could still go back to the original Legion Go, which is actually what I did. Now, real quick before I shift over to that Legion Go, I do want to point out that the Legion Go S does come pre-installed with SteamOS. So you're basically getting the exact same software and the exact same OS that was running on the Steam Deck, making it very appealing as basically the cheapest entry point into the Steam Deck family, of course, assuming that you're buying it open boxed. So yeah, at that point, you could also technically shop around and try to find a very cheap Steam Deck in your nearby used market or on eBay. But even now, with how rare that's gotten, I don't know that you'll find that much crazier of a deal on those. Now, peeling back a little bit, let's go back to the original Legion Go. This has been my main driver for the last 6 or so months. I managed to get it for $400 off of eBay. You probably will not find these available at retailers. Because it's an older model, it actually released back in the end of 2023. Now this one came with Windows, so when you do buy it, it's going to have a little bit of that initial setup that you would get when you buy like a new laptop, for example. You know, all those different updates that you would get as soon as you get a new PC. But after that, with effectively just checking a single box in the settings, it does eventually switch over to that Xbox full screen experience, which is more or less in line with what you would be getting on the Xbox ROG Ally that I mentioned earlier. But there is a very big difference here in that so far of the 3 devices that I've talked about, the Legion Go is actually significantly stronger and better in performance than both of those previous devices. And that's because it has the chip that I mentioned earlier, the Z1 Extreme chip. I would say the biggest downside with this one is that because it is an older device, it's going to be a lot harder to find one in good condition, and the battery might not be nearly as strong as the other 2 previous devices. So it's not going to feel like very portable, but at the same time, these things are pretty big, so I don't know how portable they need to be. I've found that when I'm emulating older games, I can last a couple of hours, but if I'm playing something a little bit more intense, it's good to have a charger port nearby so that you can plug it in within an hour of gameplay. And of course, you can increase the length of time your battery lasts by tinkering with the settings, turning down the fan speeds, lowering the frame rates, all that fun stuff. And that's true for all of these devices, really. Now, that being said, the best place to look for this one, once again, would either be eBay or in the pre-owned market. I would not buy these off of any retailers because I feel like they're typically overpriced, and at that point you might as well buy something that's a bit newer. On eBay right now, I often see them being posted for above $500, but I do notice that many of them in the last couple of months have sold for anywhere between $400 and $450. I would say snagging one of these for around that $500 mark is about the most that you should go. $400 is probably the sweet spot. If you find it for cheaper than that in your local used market, definitely go for that, but I had no luck on OfferUp or Facebook Market. And do keep in mind that there is a 1 terabyte version as well as a 512 gigabyte version. So when I got it for $400, that was 512 gigabytes. So if you're able to snag that 1 terabyte for $500 or maybe a little bit over $500, it might still be a good deal. This Legion Go is not the cheapest option, but it is one of the best options that you could buy. At least, for me it is, because it does have the larger screen, and while it is an LCD screen, I swear they were like magicians when they made this thing. It is a very good looking LCD. It also has a resolution of 1600p, which makes emulation a dream on this because those 4x3 games really fill up the screen. And because it has that Z1 Extreme chip, and since the screen on it supports up to 144 frames per second, you'll be getting a very good frame rate on even some of the more intense newer games. Honestly, I cannot recommend this device enough. I absolutely adore it. And if you're able to grab it for around that $500 mark, I definitely would go for it. But obviously, shop around and see if you can get it as low as 400 bucks. The Legion Go was basically my introduction to PC gaming, by the way. Up until last year, I was pretty much just a console gamer. I've learned and am learning PC gaming because of this device, and it's a lot of fun, and I spend a lot of time playing so many different games that I never thought I would be playing. But any one of these devices that I'm recommending, you might go into it with the same type of experience. It's not like this is going to be ultimately better, but it is stronger than the previous devices when it comes to playing some of the more high-end games. It also has that larger screen, it has a kickstand on the back of it, and it has the detachable controllers just like the Switch, which is pretty cool. But anyway, let's move on from there for a second, because there is another device that also has the Z1 Extreme chips that I do recommend because you can get it at a much cheaper price. And that is the other ROG Ally. Not the Xbox ROG Ally, it's the white ROG Ally that came out previously. This is actually probably the cheapest entry point into PC gaming that you will likely find depending on your used market. But once again, this is going to rely on you doing your due diligence and buying something secondhand from OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace. There are also two versions of this. One of them has the Z1 Extreme chip and the other one has the Z1 chip. Obviously, you're going to want the Z1 Extreme chip, but even if you're able to get that Z1 chip for a cheaper price, it's still a very good handheld if you're able to snag it for below that $300 price. Now, I was able to get one of these with a minor scratch on it for $250. That was the one with the Z1 Extreme chip. I actually helped my cousin buy it. But I do think that was a very lucky deal, and you'll have to shop around quite a bit and negotiate pretty hard in order to get that kind of a price. My brother ended up grabbing an ROG Z1, not the one with the Extreme, and he got it for $300, which also is a very good deal, just obviously not as good as getting a Z1 Extreme for a little bit more than that if you need to. I definitely would not pay $400 for either of these things, so if you can get it for $350 or cheaper, obviously the cheaper the better, both of them are very good options. Just keep in mind when you're looking at performance, the Z1 Extreme is going to be getting like a 30 to 50% boost in comparison to the standard Z1. So again, I can recommend this if you can find a Z1 Extreme, do your best to make sure that's the one that you're buying. The Z1 is still good, and you find it for a very cheap price. I still think it's a very good entry point into PC gaming. Not the best experience, but it is at the very least comparable to the Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck might actually have been slightly more powerful if you're leaving this thing at 15 watts, but if you move it up to 30 watts, which would decrease the battery life, it's a debate. In any case, you can avoid all of that by trying to get the ROG Ally with the Z1 Extreme and just foregoing the Z1 altogether if that's something that's important to you. But if you can find the Z1 for very cheap, $250, even anything less than $300, and you can't find a Z1 Extreme for that price, I would still recommend going for the Z1. But to give you an idea, right now we have my nephew owns the Xbox ROG Ally, that's the newer one, and then my cousin, we got him the original Asus ROG Ally with the Z1 Extreme, and then my brother ended up getting the ROG Ally with the Z1. All three of them have been gaming regularly on their devices for the better part of the last, 6 months or something like that. All three of them are very satisfied with their purchases. All three of them have docks set up and they're playing it on their TV and they're getting decent frame rates, if not good frame rates, depending on which person you're asking and which game they're playing. And look, if you're on a budget and you're looking for a decent gaming experience without paying too much money, these are all very good options. But best bang for your buck, if you're able to find a good deal on it, the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme might actually be the best value for the dollar if you're able to grab it around that $300 price point. In a similar fashion, there's also the ROG Ally X. That's the old model of the Xbox ROG Ally, which came in black. It looks like the white one, but it's black, obviously. This is also not that bad of a value proposition, but it's also a bit steeper in price. If you can find it for anywhere between $500 to $600, it might be better than some of the other choices that I mentioned previously that are around that same price point. But I'm seeing them on eBay going for around $700, and at that point, I don't know that that's what I would recommend. It has the same Z1 Extreme as the ROG Ally Non-X, so the white version, but it does dramatically improve on the entire experience with like the battery and performance, and a lot of other little, not tiny things here and there that you can look up a comparison video if you're interested. But gosh, even right now, as I'm recording this video, I'm looking on eBay to see the prices of the ROG Ally X, and I'm finding the regular ROG Ally with a Z1 Extreme chip for like $300. And immediately I'm like, yeah, that would be a much better deal in comparison to the ROG Ally X for $700. So like I said, if you could find the ROG Ally X for around that $500 mark, maybe even up to $600, I might recommend that over some of the other devices. It would be stronger than the Legion Go S Z2 Go, for example, but you're going to have to be pretty lucky to find it at that price. The thing is, for me, if you are willing to spend that much money, $700+ I would either recommend lowering your budget and buying one of the devices that I mentioned previously, or increasing your budget just a little bit and actually getting the Xbox ROG Ally X. Yeah, the Steam Deck OLED is in this price range too, but I do not think it's worth it at this price. Definitely don't do that. Anything for Steam Deck, if you can find it used for a cheap price, go for it there. Do not buy it at these prices that Valve just increased the prices to. It's absolutely not worth it there. Now, the Xbox ROG Ally X is in a very interesting position right now. It is, I believe, one of only 2 devices on the market currently that have the brand new Z2 Extreme chip. The other device is the Legion Go 2, which is currently sitting around $2,000, so don't buy that. When these devices both launched late last year, the Xbox ROG Ally X came in at $1,000, with the Legion Go 2 with the same Z2 Extreme chip came in at around $1,300. The thing is, Lenovo has decided to increase their prices. Asus, obviously just like with the other Xbox ROG Ally that we covered in the beginning of this video, has yet to do their price increase. They might, they probably will. But for now, when the Xbox ROG Ally first launched, I did not think it was worth it. Many others didn't. It also had some of the other issues that its younger brother has. It has the Xbox name, but it's not an Xbox, so that put a lot of people off. The $1,000 price point when it launched late last year was considered too high, and now it's not really that much of a deterrent anymore compared to what some of the other handheld gaming PCs. It also has like a bunch of cool tech wrapped into it. You can watch reviews on this thing if you'd like. And I think it's about as future-proof as you can get right now in the handheld gaming space. So if you did buy this thing, you would not need to upgrade. Honestly, with the way things look right now, maybe not ever. Now, $1,000 is way more than I would pay for this device. I can't justify a $1,000 purchase of a handheld gaming PC. Maybe I will in a few years when the prices just keep skyrocketing, but for now at least, I still would not buy this thing at $1,000. But I would, actually, let me rephrase that, I am actually shopping around for one of these. Everything else has gone up in price, and I'm pretty sure this one's going to go up in price soon. And as much as I love my Legion Go, it's a 3-year-old device at this point. I would like to have something to kind of future-proof me just a little bit more. Look, you'll be fine with any of the other devices that I mentioned recently, but obviously the latest and greatest and strongest device is going to give you a little bit longer of a lifespan and a pretty decent performance jump in comparison to everything that I mentioned before. It's not for everybody, but I do think it's worth at least thinking about if you have the money to spend for it, even if it is very steep. Now, if you're somebody that wants to drop $1,000, by all means, you do you, but I'm not that kind of person. So I'll tell you what I'm doing, and you can decide if it's something that you would be interested in as well. So first up, the easiest way to save over $100 on this thing is to buy it open box from Best Buy. I'm seeing it go down as low as $888 right now if you're looking for open box. And again, since this is Best Buy, it's a secure purchase. So if you buy it and something's wrong with it, you can always go back and return it. But for me, since I am a bit of a cheapskate, I still would like to save more money on that. Now, I think on eBay, after the Steam Deck price increase, these things have gone up significantly in demand. They are moving very quickly, usually hovering on the lower end around the $800 mark, and depending on if they come with anything extra, it could easily go for close to $900. I think that $800 point is probably the most I would be willing to spend on this, maybe another $20 or $30. I'm definitely throwing out a bunch of offers in the $750 range to see if any of the sellers bite, but your mileage may vary on that. Of course, you can also check in on the local Facebook Marketplace as well as the OfferUp and see if you can save anything more than that, but I think it's unlikely. So if you absolutely have to have that security and you don't want to drop that $1,000, Best Buy for $870 is probably a very good choice. But if you're willing to get a little bit frisky, yeah, jump on eBay and see what you can find. Just make sure you do your due diligence and protect your purchases, because we're looking at a much more expensive handheld right now, and I wouldn't want anybody to get screwed over because of me. Just keep in mind, there are a bunch of these being sold on eBay for around $500, and they're saying that they're shipping from China. The sellers have 0%, no reviews on there. Those are scams. So as a rule of thumb, if something seems like it's too good to be true, it's usually too good to be true. But yeah, this is probably going to be my next purchase, but I'm only thinking about it because of how much I've enjoyed getting into the handheld gaming space. So when I bought the Legion Go for $400, I didn't want to go all out and buy a device that was more expensive than that until I knew that I would be getting the use out of it. And just seeing how much time I've been spending on the whole handheld gaming PC space to the point where I've pretty much all but abandoned consoles altogether. Now, in my mind, I'm like, it might be worth selling my Legion Go and grabbing one of these. Honestly, I have family members around me that probably would buy it right off me anyway for the same price that I paid to get it, so I'm kind of lucky in that regard. But still, I mean, these things can move pretty easily on eBay for $500, what we saw earlier. Anyway, these are the devices that I can recommend because I've used some variation of each one of these, and I have first or even secondhand experience with pretty much all of them to an extent. There's still the MSI Claw family of handhelds, which I actually have not gotten into at all. Not yet, at least. That might be the next set of handhelds that I start looking into. So if you know something about those, it might be worth checking it up on your end. But I cannot help you with those, and I don't want to recommend anything that I have no experience and have done no research on. They do have a range of prices too. If you're looking for the lower end something used, you can find something for close to $350. And if you're looking for the highest end device that they have, it is slightly over $1,000. So again, do your due diligence and make your own research if you're looking at the MSI Claw family. But other than that, I've recommended the devices that I think are worth it. I think I've given you guys a fairly good range of prices too. And I've also given you guys multiple different types of buying experiences, whether it's brand new or pre-owned or something from a retailer that's refurbished or open box. This may not be as easy as just going out and buying a Steam Deck because it's the easiest and cheapest option out there, but unfortunately times are tough. Things aren't as easy as they used to be. But that does not mean that you should not be able to game, and you should not be able to game on a budget as well. So hopefully this guide does give you an idea of where to start looking and at what price point you should be looking for depending on the device. What I told my family and friends when they were picking what they wanted is it wasn't about which device specifically they wanted to buy, it was about what price was available for that range of devices. You might prefer a Legion Go over a Z1 Extreme ROG Ally, but if the Legion Go you're finding is only at $600 and the Z1 Extreme ROG Ally drops down to $250, yeah, just don't get the Legion Go, get the ROG Ally. That's a better entry point. But that being said, with everything going up in price, I don't want to scare people into buying something as soon as possible, but I do suggest buying these things because you'll quickly see the used market increase in price too as time goes on. It's already jumped up a little bit in the last 6 months. In any case, I hope this video was very informative for you. I will be back for more content fairly soon. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.